have this one final stop they're sitting in right now, and that's the White Room. The White Room is literally just the room at the end of the crew arm that has an opening into Dragon. It is the last place on planet Earth Bob and Doug are going to be standing before they step into Dragon for their ride to the International Space Station.
And the term the White Room was first used during NASA Gemini missions, where the room right before entering the spaceship was painted white. And as you can see, we've continued this tradition with painting ours white as well. And on Wednesday, they actually started a new tradition by signing the wall in the White Room. It's a fairly small area that has room for the crew and a few ground support members to complete cargo load at T-minus 24 hours and crew ingress at T-minus 2 hours and 35 minutes, which is coming up here shortly. And ingress is how we refer to the crew boarding Dragon.
Also inside the White Room is a movable platform that just gets extended out to the capsule just to make that boarding process much smoother for the crew to climb into Dragon. As you might expect, it's also environmentally controlled. You can see kind of a big seal right up against the side hatch, and that's just done so Dragon can be open while keeping all the dust, dirt, and the Florida humidity out of the capsule, making sure it's pristine for the crew. And so that seal is going to stay in place until they begin to retract it, get the arm ready to move out of the way, and by that point, the hatch will already be closed.
And the White Room also has lots of tools in order to open the side hatch, complete crew ingress, and prepare for any contingencies or emergency that may be encountered.
And right now, they're just in the White Room. They're getting a final briefing. You can see them with a number of different pad technicians. Everybody on that team has a specific job. Some are suit specialists who are going to help Bob and Doug get connected to their seats. Some are specialists with the Dragon capsule itself and are going to be responsible for closing the hatch. And we also typically have a photographer in there just to help kind of capture these moments as the crew gets ready. So right now we're watching, and we can see them start to line up there. We'll see Doug Hurley going first. And so he'll be the first one through the capsule, and he's going to be ingressing. That's just our spaceflight term for entering. You're going to hear a lot of these terms throughout the next couple of days as they make their way up to orbit. Ingress getting in, egress coming out. And they're also doing that final FOD check, making sure that the crew don't have any foreign object debris, dust, dirt, anything that could interfere with the systems on Dragon just before they get in.
Right, as Leland and Lauren were mentioning earlier, they do have stuff on their suits to protect from FOD, and they have FOD covers on their boots, as they mentioned, as well as on their umbilical port on their suits. And that needs to be removed before they can ingress.
The crew has arrived at the White Room. Ingress is in progress on schedule.
Just listening into the nets and hearing those updates live. Yes, once the FOD check is complete, they can enter, which is happening live on your screen right now. And as they climb into Dragon, they will buckle themselves in and attach their umbilicals to their suits. And as you can see, the suit techs are there to help them get buckled and settled into those seats. And as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the suit's primary function is to protect the crew in the event of a cabin depressurization. So the suits help keep them cool, as well as delivers nitrox in case there is a suit depressurization.
As we go through this, we saw Doug Hurley go in first. He's the commander for this mission. He's closest to your screen. And then Bob Bankin's just next to him, and they're going to get some assistance from these suit techs as they get in. There are 4 seats inside of Dragon for these missions, and they are numbered 1 through 4 if you're looking from the perspective of the suit techs inside the hatch, going from right to left. So Doug Hurley is in seat 2, that's the commander seat, and Bob Bankin is in seat 3, which for Crew Dragon's the pilot seat. And obviously we don't have anybody in seats 1 or 4 today. Crew Dragon is designed to carry 4 astronauts, though, on future NASA missions, and we'll see that on Crew 1, which will have 3 NASA astronauts and 1 from our partner agency, JAXA. And then directly above the crew right now, but right in front of them, once their seats get rotated, are the 3 displays that they'll use throughout the flight. And that just gives them insight into all of Dragon's systems. It allows them to take control of the vehicle and manually fly it, which we'll see them do hopefully only twice during 2 manual flight tests. Again, Dragon's autonomous, but they can jump in and take over if they need to.
And as Dan mentioned, the displays are above them right now, but those seats will rotate back for launch position so that they can easily access those displays. So coming up next, the crew will do a comm check once they're all settled in. And that's so that they can check to make sure that they can hear mission control, and then after that, their seats will be rotated into position. So let's check in with John Innsbrucker for the latest on the health of both of those vehicles. John, what's the status update today?
Team on this 43 minutes and counting down. Launch with Dragon to the space station. As you see, the launch team has obviously arrived shortly after T-4 hours. Open up the side hatch on Dragon. Got ready for the arrival of the astronauts. We let the crew the elevators walk over and enter Dragon, and they're now getting situated inside the capsule. Now, the flight team is monitoring data from Dragon. They most recently have completed a command and telemetry check of the radio frequency system on Dragon through the tracking and data relay satellite network. That looked to go well. There are no issues in work as we watch the astronauts getting situated in their seats inside the Dragon spacecraft. The Falcon 9 team is preparing for final checkouts and propellant load. Those checkouts are due to begin at T-2 hours, some 42 minutes from now, when the launch crew officially gets on console in the firing room. All systems on Falcon 9 are currently go. The range continues to be green on the support side. The areas around the pad obviously clear except for the folks doing the entry into the capsule. Air and sea space are clear. We hear helicopter go by from time to time. The concern is the weather forecast. We are continuing right now at a 50% probability of violation of the weather constraints. The big concerns are going to be the thick clouds, precipitation, possibility of lightning. I mentioned earlier, normally you get a strong sea breeze from the ocean that pushes inland and keeps the clouds from Central Florida from building up. But today the sea breeze is fairly weak, so we expect the thunderstorms will get closer to the launch pad. We're also checking downrange conditions. If there's a contingency splashdown of Dragon, we're looking at essentially the wave heights, lightning, rain along the trajectory. Right now it's marginal, but it is still go. We do expect that to improve slightly during the day. So fingers crossed there that the downrange weather looks good. But right now at T-2 hours, 41 minutes, as the clock continues to count down, all systems are go for launch.
All right, thanks, John I. And as we watch Bob and Doug get buckled into their seats, I'm joined once again by SpaceX's Jessica Jensen, just to kind of walk through everybody what made Dragon a 21st century spacecraft. So first off, thanks for coming in today. I know you got to come in for a launch. That's always tough.
Of course.
Walk us through again kind of Dragon's life history. I mean, we have one in a clean room pretty soon right behind us. Walk us how we got to where we are today to have Bob and Doug climbing into that spacecraft.
Sure. So SpaceX was founded to make life multiplanetary. That was why Elon started the company back in 2002. But, also when he founded the company, we were a very small company for several years. And so we had to look for opportunities to, hey, how do you go from being a small company to actually putting people into orbit? So when NASA came out with the need to fly cargo to and from the International Space Station, we jumped on that because we said, hey, first, not only is carrying cargo to and from the space station cool, I bet we could actually then fly people to the International Space Station. And hey, for 8 years now, we've been flying cargo.
Yeah.
And then now we have transitioned over into flying crew and cargo together. So that's basically been the evolution of Dragon, and it's been awesome.
And I know when we see Falcon 9, we get to talk a lot about reusability. Everyone is very familiar with the first stage coming back down and how cool that looks. Dragon is also designed with some reusability. In fact, you've flown Dragon multiple times, or you've flown Dragons multiple times to the space station. How does reusability factor into Dragon's life cycle?
Yeah, so I'll actually talk a little bit about both because one thing I think everyone always thinks about reusability and hey, it saves money or that's great, but reusability actually improves your reliability. So when we get Falcons back and when we get Dragons back, either after one mission or multiple mission, we can do all these detailed inspections on them. And that's super important because when you fly a vehicle, you can only have so many sensors on it. You can't put a sensor, every single inch of a rocket or a spacecraft.
And there's already way more than I think anybody realizes.
Exactly. But so, especially for rockets that wind up in the ocean, some people don't have any idea of what they actually went through. So the fact that we get all the hardware back, we were able to inspect literally every square inch of it and make small design changes that actually improve reliability for the whole fleet. So even though Bob and Doug are on a brand new rocket and a brand new spacecraft, those spacecraft are actually more reliable based on the knowledge we've learned from reusability.
We've walked people through a lot of the new systems on Dragon. What are just some of the cool things that are maybe beneath the surface that people don't know about with Dragon?
So I think one of the coolest things is the autonomous docking system. And what that is it's basically we have, GPS sensors on Dragon, but then we also have cameras and imaging sensors such as a LiDAR on basically the nose cone or the front part of Dragon as it's approaching the space station. And all these sensors are feeding data back to our flight computer to say, hey, how far away am I from the space station? What's my relative velocity to the space station? And then that feeds into the flight computer, which has algorithms written by our engineers to say, okay, based on how far away you are in your rates, here's how you fire the thrusters to most effectively get to the docking target. And I think that's just super cool.
Well, I mean, we're all waiting for our cars to drive ourselves to work. And for Bob and Doug, that's exactly what it's doing for them.
Exactly. And what I think is so cool is the computer does this just like flawlessly. It's easy. When I tried to do it, I failed miserably. I tried to dock Dragon to the ISS 3 times and I failed. Fourth time I got it.
Good morning.
And I will tell the public out there that on our website, we actually have a Dragon ISS simulator. So you yourself can try and fire the thrusters and see how well you do. Maybe I'm just a bad driver, but I think the flight computer does a really good job.
I think we all had fun with it. All right, well, we are just starting to hear. They're going to start up those comm checks with Bob and Doug.
CDR, PLT, comm check,
So let's
umbilical.
listen in.
CDR, loud and clear. PLT, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Umbilical comm check complete. Stand by for ground station comm check.
And again, we're just listening in. They're doing these comm checks, these communication checks. So Bob and Doug are going to do a series of these checkouts with the teams on the ground, both the core here in Hawthorne and the launch director out in Florida. And they're going to be doing this over Dragon to ground. And they're also going to be doing it over the countdown net. Those are the 2 main loops or nets that you're going to hear going out. And they're going to be doing it through their different communications paths. We heard them do through the TDRS or the tracking data and relay satellites. Those are those primary satellites that we're going to be used to talk to Bob and Doug throughout their flight and to send commands to Dragon. They'll also do it through ground stations. SpaceX has a worldwide network of ground stations that they're able to communicate with the vehicle. And that's what we'll be using to get video inside the cabin of Bob and Doug on their flight up. So if you tuned in the other day, this is one of the first things that they do once they get inside the vehicle. And this is just to make sure all the communication systems with the Dragon spacecraft, with the suits, everything are working. They're able to talk to and hear everybody on the ground.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check, ground stations.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Ground station comm check complete. Stand by for TDRS comm check.
And just a reminder, you're hearing the core. That's the crew operations responsible engineer. That's, if you've followed NASA missions in the past, that's the Capcom position. That is this pretty much the singular voice that's talking to the astronauts throughout their flight. And that's a position based here in Hawthorne, California. And you'll also hear
Dragon, SpaceX, ComCheck, Tetris.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Tetris, ComCheck complete. Standby with ComChecks with MD and LD in the launch configuration.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1. ComCheck.
SpaceX Jason, loud and clear.
Copy, loud and clear. Glad to have you guys on board. Stand by for ComCheck on Dragon Ground. Dragon, MD, Dragon Ground, ComCheck.
MD Dragon, loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for ComChecks with LD.
Dragon, launch director on countdown 1, ComCheck.
Good afternoon, Mike. Loud and clear.
I have you the same, and good afternoon. Stand by for my ComCheck on Dragon Ground. Dragon SpaceX on Dragon Ground, ComCheck.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
I have you the same. Back to core.
And Dragon, SpaceX, this concludes our launch configuration ComChecks. Report when ready for seat rotation per section 2 of 4.100.
Dragon will put that in work.
Copy.
All right, so all those communications checks were done successfully, and you could even see, and it's so cool when we get these views right inside the cabin.
SpaceX Dragon in 2.2, we are ready for seat rotation.
Copy. We will report when initiating.
But you could see Doug Hurley using his right hand. He has the talk button built into the seat itself. So just, again, showing you all of the different systems, how the suit is integrated into the seat. It's all just one big circle for this whole spacecraft. So really cool to see those comm checks live. Jessica, thank you so much for walking us through some of the really cool updates, the upgrades. Did you have any other cool stuff besides?
Let's see. So I don't know if you guys can see, but we have the Dragon clean room here. And one of the coolest things is it is right on the main floor of our main building. So thousands of employees walk by here all the time and get to see Dragon in its final processing before it goes to the Cape. On Wednesday, the Crew 1 capsule was in here. It looked almost done. It looks a little empty right now, but that's because that capsule went off into our separate test facility for its final propulsion checks. So we do leak checks and things there, and we do that in a separate facility just because it's high pressure testing. And then the vehicle will come back here, get its final thermal protection system put on, and then it will ship off to Cape Canaveral and get ready to launch 4 astronauts to the International Space Station.
I mean, what's it like to see it? Because when you see the first initial pressure vessel, it looks nothing like the final thing. So what's it like to just kind of watch it go through, and you just see little bits get added on, and then the next thing you know, it's a whole spacecraft?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so amazing. I'm so impressed. You know, when you look at a machine, you're like, how does this ever get built? How do people ever do this? And it really is just step by step, one piece at a time. Each piece has its critical function, and you get to watch that being built right in front of your eyes every day when you go to
Dragon,
work.
SpaceX, we are ready and
whatever you do
initiating
here.
seat rotation.
Dragon copies.
And we just heard the seat rotations about to begin. So Jessica, thank you so much. Cool facts about Dragon for everyone to listen in on, and we can see the seats start to rotate now. Pretty soon Bob and Doug will be in their launch configuration, and they'll be ready to go. And we can see the seats slowly start to rotate. Again, they're in this down position just to make it easier to climb in and out of Dragon. They'll rotate to this launch position to put their backs a little bit more parallel to the ground. It makes taking the G-force a little bit easier for the crew on the way uphill, but most importantly, positions those touchscreens directly in front of them, which is just their gateway into Dragon.
Dragon SpaceX seats are in the launch position.
We copy.
All right, and confirmation the seats are in the launch position. Let's go down now to Gary in Mission Control Houston, where I know the entire JSD team is standing by and ready to see Dragon take flight today. Over to you, Gary.
Thanks, Dan. Very much so. Great to see good comm checks from Bob and Doug, and that their seats have been rotated into their launch position. Here in Houston, Flight Director Zeb Scoville has pulled space station flight controllers, and all systems are go for launch from the space station side of things. Essentially, the station is prepared for Dragon to arrive 19 hours after launch. Chris Cassidy has completed his preparations for Bob and Doug to arrive. He's got a chance to view some of the broadcasts. It even said they were, quote, looking sharp. Flight controllers here will monitor the countdown, but really it's up to the teams in Kennedy and Hawthorne to get us to liftoff at this point. So we want to hear your comments as we continue to count down to launch. So let's go to the social desk now. Tahira.
Thanks, Gary. So glad to hear that polls are go, at least on your end, and just hoping this weather just works out good for today's launch. I mean, people online are on the edge of their seats. We just checked numbers, and we are up to 1.1 million viewers right now. That's almost double when we checked last time. And right now, we also have Columbia, South Carolina is leading the viewership. So interesting to see how that changes. Let's take a broader look at the conversation online with this heat map of the United States. Now, this shows Launch America mentions by state over the past week, and we have California leading right now with the most mentions. And I'm very surprised. I really thought the Space Coast would take it home, but let's see how this changes over the course of the broadcast. And with that, let's see what y'all are posting online right now. Guys, I mean, check out these outfits. Absolutely love it. Love to just see how people are making things creative for this launch and really making it their own, putting their personal touch on it. Let's take a look at another. Oh, we are back to the Launch America heat mentions. So let's see how that changes over the course of this broadcast. But really fun to see those photos online. Oh, we have another space pet, guys. These do not get old, so please use hashtag Launch America on social media. Right now, it looks like we have Catstronaut Boris, who is ready for his launch in the Crew Dragon capsule. I love seeing the pet owners unite for this mission. So like I said, definitely use that hashtag. We will be looking for it during the show. Marie, what's the latest at Kennedy?
Thanks to Hero, we are at T-minus 2 hours, 26 minutes, 47 seconds and counting from liftoff of the Falcon 9 from the Kennedy Space Center here in Florida, carrying NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. You see them right now aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft. It's been a very exciting day so far. The crew has been up since about 8 o'clock this morning as they prepare to head to the International Space Station as part of this Demo 2 mission for NASA.
And as we speak, the astronauts, as you saw, are inside Dragon and have completed their comm checks. So now they can communicate with the teams who are on the ground. And their seats have rotated upright to their reclined launch positions, allowing them to see and access the display panel. And now they are about to, they initiate their own suit leak checks to make sure that their seat is in proper working condition before liftoff.
And in just a little bit, at about T-minus 1 hour, 55 minutes, it could happen a little bit sooner, though. We're running a little bit ahead of schedule. We will see the closeout team begin to close the side hatch in preparation for flight. And that's going to be one of the key visual milestones on the timeline to liftoff. Now, we want to take you to a couple of special guests we have joining us. They are with Daryl Nail at the OSB-2 viewing location, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, and also Kennedy Space Center Director Bob Cabana is there with Daryl. Hi, Daryl.
Hi, Marie. That's right. We're in the fifth floor of the Operations and Support Building here at the Kennedy Space Center with a nice view of Launch Complex 39. And the two men that you mentioned are here to join me to answer a few questions. We're excited to have them both here. And they are, of course, Bob Cabana, the director of the Kennedy Space Center, and Jim Bridenstine, administrator for NASA. Gentlemen, thanks again for making the time to be here. Of course, the big story right now, Jim, is the weather. So let's talk a little bit about that. We can see there's some clouds building. That was forecast. You took part in a weather briefing this morning. What do you know about the weather and the decision that was made to say, hey, let's give this another shot today?
Yeah, so what got us last time was the electricity in the atmosphere. And of course, today there are, in fact, buildups. It doesn't look like there are thunderstorms at this time, but they are expected. The question is, when do those thunderstorms go away? And when those thunderstorms materialize, where are they located? We are predicting about a 50-50 shot of going this time. But given the fact that we are in late May in Florida, we have to take every shot we can get. So it's not likely that in a couple of days it's going to be any better than it is today. So we are a go for launch right now. And we are hoping that the weather will hold up. We almost made it on Wednesday. And the trend is better today than it was on Wednesday. So we'll see.
And I saw a forecast that said the clearing is supposed to happen right around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So
That's right.
we're hoping that
launch is at 3:22,
right.
clearing, at the earliest 3 o'clock, at the latest 3:30. So depending on when that happens, we'll either be go or no go. But again, we're going to take every shot we've got.
Also watching the downrange weather for a
That's right.
potential rescue in case there were an abort.
That's right. So, we have these staging areas. When we go from the first stage to the second stage, that's a higher risk evolution. We want to make sure that in the case we have to exercise the launch abort at that point, that the weather is good. And of course, that's off the coast of North Carolina. The big thing there is it's great that we have a launch abort capability. The challenge is that launch abort capability includes parachutes. And with parachutes, you've got to make sure that you've got the weather to come down. If there are thunderstorms or downbursts or high winds, that's problematic for the parachute system.
Right. And sea states as well, bouncing that
Exactly.
capsule around in the ocean. Bob, of course, you're an astronaut. You know what it's like to hit the reset button and do it all over again. Get into the spacecraft, get ready to go, only to be told, no, we're not going to go today. We're going to try it again. What's that like? And then tell me about the mindset as you have to kind of reset. Do you feel less anxious? Do you feel more comfortable the second time around?
Daryl, first off, my last flight, we counted down to 18 seconds and didn't go. Man, and when you get to 18 seconds, you're ready. Yeah. The key is, it's the training that we go through, all the repetition that we do. We practice everything, including scrubs. And just because you didn't launch doesn't mean you don't have something to do. So you got to go through those back out procedures. It's all done very professionally. Then it was out of the vehicle and into the Astrovan, back to crew quarters. And we had a positive attitude. We got a good night's rest. And we went through it again. It's a matter of doing your job. And these guys are well prepared. It's all part of what we do.
Yeah, they stopped the count at 17 minutes, but you had it all the way up to just a few seconds. That's a big difference.
And the truth is, the next night, actually, everything went really better. The weather was bad the first time. I was kind of glad we scrubbed. And we scrubbed for an issue with the vehicle that they later sorted out. As it turned out, we wouldn't have had enough prop to rendezvous with the Russian functional cargo block. But the next night, it was just a perfectly smooth launch count. Everything just went like clockwork, and it set the stage for an awesome mission.
I think you told the press before you walked out, I think you were over there at astronaut crew quarters. We're going today. I'm wondering where's the source of that confidence coming from?
I just got a feeling, you got to have a positive attitude. I watched a lot of weather down here supporting shuttle missions, and I'm hoping that those clouds over the I-95 corridor, the Indian River, keeps them west of us, and that stuff that's building offshore is far enough off that we can stay in an open window here at the Cape.
Good. Well, we got your positive vibe going, and we appreciate that. Jim, when you were down in the astronaut crew quarters and when they were suiting up, you got a second chance to visit with the astronauts. Kind of tell us about that and what was their demeanor? What was their mood today?
So again, they seem loose. They were loose last time. They're loose this time. They're definitely ready to go. They're excited. They've been wanting to go for a long time now. I'll tell you one thing that I thought was a little interesting is, Bob Behnken was making fun of Doug Hurley because on Doug's last flight, they scrubbed 5 times before launching on the 6th time. So Bob Behnken seems to think that Doug Hurley is the problem in this case. But to see them joking about that as they're getting suited up, ready to go, yes, they're trained, they're ready, but they're also loose, and that's good to see because because they're going to have to be on their game when we launch.
These guys are pretty impressive. Doug Hurley and Bob Binken. I mean, Doug Hurley, an incredible pilot. Bob Binken, he's got a PhD in mechanical engineering.
And he's a flight test engineer himself in the Air Force. Yeah.
Well, in your assessment, why are these guys the right stuff?
Well, this is a test flight, and you know we have great astronauts that are chemists. We have great astronauts that are botanists. We have a talented and diverse, a very very diverse astronaut corps in general. But this is a test flight, and for a test flight, what do you want? You want test pilots. You want people that for a living, they have made a living flying new things that have never been flown before. And Bob Binken and Doug Hurley are the two people that you would want in a test flight, and that's exactly what this is.
Bob, you're a pilot too. You want to weigh in on Doug Hurley? He seems like he's got the right mentality and smooth customer.
He's a naval aviator, a marine pilot, a test pilot. I'm all in. He's a great guy.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about in terms of the Kennedy Space Center, right? So you've been here since 2007, right?
2008.
2008. Sorry, off by 1 year. 2011, the Atlantis came to a wheel stop. I grew up here. My dad worked for NASA. My uncle was a contractor. When that wheel stop happened, the next day, my uncle got the layoff notice, right? And 30, 60 days. It was depressing. We're talking about thousands of people laid off.
Super depressing. Atlantis landed on a Thursday. On Friday, 2,000 contractors got pink slips and walked out the door. Yet they worked on that vehicle. That was the best vehicle we ever flew. The cleanest. That's the dedication of the workforce here.
Right. So, and take me back to that time. You called it a depressing time. The fact that the shuttle program was something that the government completely had ownership of and paid for. Now we're moving into this commercial crew, which you've overseen making that transition. And tell me about that 9 years in which we made that move.
Well, obviously, everybody was really attached to the shuttle. I mean, it was our history for 30 years. It did an awesome job. The Hubble Space Telescope, all the satellites it deployed, building the International Space Station. But when I first got here, I told everybody the shuttle program is going to end. We have to start preparing for our future, and nobody wanted that to hear that. But how many times in your life do you get to define what you want your future to be? And we set out on this bold goal of trying to turn KSC into a multi-user spaceport, supporting both government and commercial operations. And I've got a very persistent team. They worked extremely hard. And through a number of agreements, we were able to make it happen. And this is the future. Commercial spaceflight, the administrator says it all the time. We want to establish a commercial environment in low Earth orbit so that we can focus on the hard job of exploring beyond our home planet, to establish that presence in our solar system beyond planet Earth, establish a sustained presence on the moon, get to Mars, establish a presence there. We can't do that if we're locked here in low Earth orbit. And commercial crew with both SpaceX and Boeing, that's the beginning of a whole new era of spaceflight.
All right, very good. Quick question. We've got, of course, a special guest coming back today. The President of the United States plans on being here. Jim, you took him around the first time around. How did that go? I think I saw a picture on Twitter. He signed some space hardware.
That's right. So he took a look at the Orion crew capsule. Of course, the Orion for Artemis 1 is ready to go. And he signed, a piece of hardware that will fly on the crew capsule for Artemis 2. So that's kind of, and not just him, but the first lady and the vice president and the second lady, they all signed it. So their names are going to fly around the moon on Artemis 2, which is exciting. But I just want to give Colonel Cabana a compliment here, because he did bring this spaceport through a very difficult time. And now it is a multi-use spaceport, and we do have commercial, and we have, in fact, even international launches here. And now we're going to have commercial crew launches. Bob has done a wonderful job transforming this spaceport. That's why we're doing commercial crew. NASA wants to be one customer of many customers. We want to have numerous providers that are competing on cost, innovation, safety, driving down costs, increasing access. But even better today, when I took this job just a few short years ago, our budget at NASA was around $19 billion. The budget request that President Trump gave us for next year is $25 billion. We are in a great position because the president is committed to space exploration. Of course, he's committed to the Space Force. We haven't had this much support for space since John F. Kennedy. And we've got bipartisan support. Everybody wants to see the Artemis program be successful. Everybody wants to see not just the next man, but the first woman on the moon. And that's what we're building here.
Yeah, it's key to it all is that bipartisan support. And of course, what the work that Bob's been doing here, you can see the commercial activity all around this place. We're going to get to some questions on social media real quick that our audience wants to find out. So the first question is from James on Twitter, and he asks, what is the hardest part of going to space? We're going to have to give that question to Bob.
Well, Daryl, nothing's hard if you prepare for it. And what we are afraid of is stuff we don't have knowledge about. And that's what we do when we learn how to be astronauts. We train, okay? You spend a long time as an astronaut candidate learning. You spend a long time preparing for a mission. For an International Space Station mission, training around the world on all the different modules and everything, it's like 2 years of training before you get on orbit for that time to actually do your work. So I'd have to say the hardest part is the preparation for it. But you are so prepared when you go. You just have total confidence. You know that you are very well trained for what you're going to do. You have an outstanding team on the ground supporting you. And that is so important to have that ground support as you climb into that vehicle. You know that they've done their very best to ensure your safety and a successful mission. But after that, it's a piece of cake, except no simulator on Earth can prepare you for what those guys are going to feel. It's better than a cat shot off an aircraft.
I believe it. Maybe one day I'll get to try. The commercialization effort means we want everybody to be able to fly into space. That's the goal.
It's a great point about preparation because that's not the highly visible part. The launch is, and so it's good to know that all that preparation leads to that confidence. By the way, just an update operationally, they're getting ready to close the hatch door. You can see on your screen there, the workers there are getting ready to get that closed and working on that right there with Doug Hurley and Bob Binken on the inside of Crew Dragon. Our next question is from Mathis on Twitter, and he asks, what kind of operations will the astronauts do between the liftoff and docking with the International Space Station? I know you pay a lot of attention, Jim, to the operations, especially of this mission.
You bet.
What do you know about that?
So there's a number of things. The first thing that they have to do is, of course, we've got a number of burns to get in phase with the International Space Station. We've got some boost burns as well. We're talking about, operating the rocket engine to get in alignment with the space station. But I'll tell you, the biggest thing that we need the astronauts to do once they get on orbit and before they dock is rest. We need them to eat. We need them to rest. We need them to be prepared for that docking. Once they are in the range of the International Space Station, they're going to start maneuvering the spacecraft themselves. Not automatic, but they're going to do it themselves. They are, in fact, test pilots. And as test pilots, they will test fly this vehicle to make sure that it operates as advertised. And of course, then they will dock with the International Space Station. And a unique capability here is it's automatic rendezvous and automatic docking. And so we're going to be able to see that for the first time as well.
That's going to be exciting to see. Thank you for sharing that with us. Jim Bridenstine, Administrator of NASA, Bob Cabana, Director of the Kennedy Space Center. Thank you both for joining us. And we're going to send it back to Marie in the studio.
All right, thanks a lot, Daryl and Mr. Bridenstine and Mr. Cabana for joining us. You can see some clouds starting to gather over Launch Complex 39A. We're keeping a close eye on weather. Again, 50% chance of launching today. We just got to see what the weather's going to do. A little bit ago, we heard the crew complete their comm checks live on the air. We saw their seats rotate. That helps get them into a little bit more comfortable position for the G-forces during launch. And more importantly, it helps them be in a better position to interact with the screens in front of them. They completed their suit leak checks. We saw during the interview just a few minutes ago, the hatch begin to close. And so inside the white room there, the pad closeout team is in there still doing some work. That hatch close is, it's not as simple as just closing a car door. There's a process to seal it and check it and make sure that everything is sealed properly. Right, Lauren?
Yeah, that's correct. If they haven't already started, one thing that will be coming up next is the leak check. What they'll do is they'll attach a piece of ground support equipment. They don't have it in their hands right now, so it looks like it hasn't started yet. Ah, there it is. You can see it there. The closeout member number 5, it's already attached to the side hatch mechanism. And what they'll do is they're essentially checking for the leak rate. And they'll hold pressure there for a few minutes and then track that change in pressure over time to make sure that it's within bounds.